CJCC Data Work Group meeting to order. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting from June 23rd?
I would move.
I'll second.
It.
All those in favor of the meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, meeting minutes are approved. Number 4 is the staff report, Sarah.
All right, so we do have sequential intercept mapping. Our first virtual round is scheduled for Monday. The technical providers, the policy research associates really wanted to do this in person, but because of the pandemic precautions, we are moving to virtual. The invites just came out this week. Unfortunately, it's kind of a short notice for some of our other partners, but we're hoping to get a good group together to really talk about that cross section between the mental health, behavioral health world and the criminal justice world, where we'll look at really what's out there, identify some gaps, identify some needs. During the second part of this will be kind of one of 2 different sessions with this mapping. The second session will actually start to prioritize different things that we've identified as needing to move on. So at the end of these 2 virtual sessions, we're expecting a report to really summarize what we have here, what we don't have here, and a plan to move forward with some of our priorities. So it is going to be different than anticipated and expected, but it'll be good. So hopefully most of you can join us on Monday afternoon. And even if you're only able to join for part of it, I think we would welcome your participation. That's on Monday afternoon. Our next CJCC meeting is scheduled for August 13th. So we're working with the leadership to plan that meeting. I'm hoping to have some data presentation to show. We do, and this kind of gets into, I guess, the update on some of the other pieces. We got most of the 10-year data trend information. The only thing that's outstanding is Menominee PD. So I am meeting with Chief tomorrow. Hopefully he can give me that data before the 13th so we can incorporate that into the presentations. But a lot of this data is just from our annual report. So it's really kind of that consistent numbers as we move forward. So we've got well over 10 years of data, and it's always interesting to look at the trends overall. So this group, we all walk through that of what was helpful, what was not helpful in the slide presentation. So we'll get those updated for our CJC meeting on the 13th. That concludes my staff report unless there's questions about anything I did or did not cover. All right.
Number 5 is the monthly dashboards.
Okay, so I do want to update the group that we did have some corrections to the top numbers for January, February, March. So they were just kind of miscalculated and that was carried over for the 3 months. So those have been updated. So we're going to put, we'll push those out and then we also hang them on our website. And then let's go over May. I've got that on my screen here. June was not quite ready to go, so we'll save that one for next month. But here is our May. Let me just shrink it so we can see it a little bit. So May, we're still in the thick of COVID, so we still have just the pandemic influencing our numbers overall. You know, average daily population is much lower than it has been, just the bookings much lower, and most of those that were held were pre-trial. So that's when there was a furlough going on in the jail, so the number serving was much lower back then. So kind of some anomalous data here. In addition, just law enforcement was really not quite as out there as a typical month. So we have a lot less proxies that came in overall, but we're continuing to track those and trends. Still seeing the same type of trends, even though it's a smaller sample of AODA type related offenses, and then the domestics. So battery domestics tend to be kind of those primary offenses that we generally see.
Sarah, did you mean to be sharing that?
Yes.
Because it's just all we see is your agenda.
Oh, you don't see it on my screen? I
You'll
see it
have to
on mine.
Stop your share and then
Stop.
start it again to the.
Oh,
to the
okay.
document you want.
Thank you for saying that, Chris. I would have just kept talking numbers here. All right, there we go. Now can you see it?
Yep.
Good. Okay, that's a little trick there. All right, so just looking at some of our numbers, you know, the court processing, I would say slowed down as we talked last month. So there are less folks getting referred to the different programs. The pre-charge diversion numbers were down, top numbers were down, even the DAGPs were down from a typical month that we would normally see. Our treatment courts have been holding steady the last couple of months. So, but just to note that, you know, those are the high risk, high need folks. So they've got a lot of challenges going on. There hasn't been any new referrals, at least in May. Looking at our failure to appear and just that court data, we're continuing to track that. Since there's been you know, a little bit lesser cases coming through, the number of non-appearance cases are also lower. That was something that we talked last month that could be interesting to track over time, just with the COVID and folks actually showing up maybe more for those telephone appearances versus the in-person. But you know, this data is not far enough away to really glean too much from that. Going to the second side here, criminal justice assessment data. So Sandy's function to go into the jail, that has not been happening with COVID. So initially it was doing some online or, you know, virtual kind of assessments. That was not very feasible. So that really just halted. So the folks that would normally be booked and held into jail aren't getting that upfront assessment process right now. And then likewise, the jail reentry project, that really halted the last several months. March was jail booking, but then we had the COVID strike, and then it was really no classes were being held in jail, no assessments were happening, and no new orientations for program people. So the last couple of months, it really has been pretty quiet with the reentry project. That has, you know, real time, we're back to July, that has resumed. We've got our peers going back in. We've got assessments happening over the phone, and we also have IT streamlined all of our releases. So now we're able to do electronic releases. So we don't have the jail having to print and sign and send back and all the hoops that they'd have to do to for those assessments. So
Sarah, can I just ask you personally, not personally, could I just ask you a question to explain to the whole group? Did IT do that through Seamless Docs?
I believe so. Krista, are you still on the line?
I am. Which one are you asking about? I'm sorry.
You did all of our releases and made them into e-forms for us?
Yep.
Was that Seamless Docs or something else?
It was Seamless Docs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's working really slick.
Yeah, we were looking at Krista's, we were talking with Krista about doing some of that for our work. And so I was just curious if you guys had already done that. That's cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. We're working, they're working well. So that's essentially the dashboard where we stand through May. Do we have any questions on anything here? I guess, Deanna, I do want to note that we did update your numbers from the previous month. So thank you for catching that.
Yes.
So back to my original question, any questions? All right. Okay, well, we'll get those shipped out to the council, and we'll also get them hung on the website. We do have one little discrepancy here of we've got 152 or 151 total participants in there. So we've got one extra or one short. So we're just trying to make sure our numbers are current. So that's why that one's just highlighted for us to follow up on. All right, I am going to stop sharing that one and send it back to Katie. Oh, well, it looks like Chief joined us. Excellent.
Okay, number 6 is the update on recidivism project and next steps.
All right, so I'm going to also share my screen here and take us to our recidivism. So this is a major joint project between all sorts of different agencies and divisions here. But essentially, we formed this backup at the end of last year, really kind of sizing up what we were looking for. We wanted to wait until we got all 2019 data in there. We had stopped about November, mid-November or late October of last year. So I did have staff go on and enter you know, through, so we have a full through 2019. So we have got a clean break when we're looking at these recidivisms, because this is something that we're going to want to do kind of repeatedly. So we do have all the data in there. Jail to reentry is too early, but we do have all the top data in there, all our treatment court data. Deanna, were you able to update the pre-charge diversion through 2019?
Yes, and I'm always a little bit behind because my program's 6 months out, as far as putting in the completion or anything.
Sure, but it's
Yep.
up to date through.
Yep.
Wonderful. Yep. So we do have the data set now full. So we're going to go, and we've also included a tab for treatment court, even though those won't be ready for some time to look at the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year recidivism. But we're ready to start calculating numbers, and we really wanted to see, you know, how many went through the program, how many graduated the program. Of those that graduated, how many came back into our system. So we did. Now, Katie, you were going to have your staff, let me pull up maybe like top. You had your staff go through and look for charges.
I did on the pre-charge program.
Okay, on the pre-charge. It
Yeah,
looks like it's
pre-charge.
also in there for
And top as well.
top.
Yep.
Okay. So we might have a little bit of, you know, CCAP data to crunch, but I think we're pretty much in there and have our data set to start crunching the numbers. Initially, I crunched them, but they need to be kind of re-put in there with the full data set. So so Katie, I guess I will connect with you if there's additional things that we would need, maybe some, you know, major staff time to dig into, but it looks like we're pretty much up to date.
Yeah, yep. I think almost like every 6 months I'm gonna have to go through it to keep it up to date, just when they, especially for pre-charge, if they're a 6-month program, because the one that just entered, they haven't entered that year phase yet. So we're gonna have to keep going through this quite a few times a year.
Right. That's what I think too. But we've got a really good baseline of data. So, and this is a shared document. So I guess one thing we just want to be careful of, that somebody doesn't accidentally, you know, delete something. But when I do my analysis piece, I try to make a copy and then do my sorting and stuff elsewhere, because sometimes it's just easier to accidentally make a mistake or the data gets jumbled. So I'm trying to keep the analysis out of this. So this is just our pure data piece, but we've got a really good start. And I think we're ready to crunch numbers and bring them back next month to see here's where we're at with these programs. This is one that we were hoping by the end of the year to share with our CJCC. So we've got our August meeting coming up here quick, but then we have another one in November. So I think we'll definitely be able to flush it all out by then. And then I think it's also important that we have program people review the data that this is, the analysis piece, that this is what they also agree to, because they're going to be able to pick up some of the, if there's errors versus me kind of taking that data. So I'm going to connect back with you, Deanna, and then our treatment court coordinators, and our, just everybody to make sure that this looks legit before we really present it to the CJCC. So we want to just be able to stand behind our data. Maybe I mentioned this last month when we met. The state CJCC just underwent a study of TAD funded program people through 2018. The state funds treatment court programs and diversion programs. So they were able to really look at the recidivism, and then they were also able to put some cost benefits on there. So really the return on investment for every dollar spent, here's so many dollars saved. That might be a little bit more advanced, but I do have the formula for us to do something similar if we wanted to, because part of this is, if we're not comparing it to something, sometimes we don't know if it's good or bad. And when we're talking about some of our programs being high risk, high need individuals, if the recidivism comes back at a higher rate than what we might expect, it might look out of whack. But that's where it's important that we're comparing it to either other folks that went through similar type programs, which the state report helps us do that, or we're looking at if they were to go into prison and then the recidivism there. So that's kind of a different measure, but now we do have actually something to measure it against. So I think that'll be helpful, where, a lot of folks just want to know the recidivism. I think it's that comparing it to something is really important. Any thoughts?
It'd be interesting to see what the numbers play out to be.
It will.
Information. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin, but it'd be interesting.
Yep. So we should have that ready to review for our next meeting.
Okay.
This is ready to go now.
One thought I did have that's sort of like related but unrelated is, we might want to consider going forward, whether it's here in Human Services or through the CJCC or elsewhere, we get our intern requests, and sometimes we accumulate a kind of a pile of projects that could be internship related. This would be a good one sort of for our regular internship, updates, because you can teach someone how to do this relatively easily.
Right. Our CJCC member, Carrie Acklin, who works at UW Stout, professor of rehab and criminal justice, she reached out to me about projects for the fall, and this was one of the projects. Our proxy data is another project, but she's hoping that we can kind of formulate a more ongoing project for the semester. So to your point, Chris, I think this could be really a good project for us to collaborate on with the university to not just this semester, but help us really make it a good sound report. Then we can continue to do this with additional semesters and the student help that, because it's so important that students actually have real data and can connect the theories to the outcomes that people have. So I think this would be a fantastic project for students. All right, I'm going to stop the sharing here and send it back to Katie.
Perfect. Okay, number 7 is the OWI Data Drive.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. And let's see, share. Okay, we're going to do a couple different things. First, I'm going to pull up this immense report and try to get off the names here. So Katie and her team really put a lot of work into this. So what we have here is all the 2019 OWIs, so all of them. We have information on, you know, of course, the offense date, but we've got additional information: offense time, offense location. We have the charge. We have blood alcohol concentration levels. We cross-referenced it with DOC if they've been on supervision. Sandy helped us do that. Chris's help with Katie's guidance helped double cross-check it with operating after being revoked or operating after suspension. And then if those occurred, what were those charges? We've got dates of violations and all sorts of information. So this is just 1 year of data, but we've got a really good data set. So what I did is took this stuff and started crunching. So I'm going to switch screens here, and we're going to look at the PowerPoint. And if you've got questions, just jump in, or if this kind of provokes another thought or another kind of question for us to analyze, I'm going to jot it down because I just got this late last week, so I didn't have a chance to map it and do some of the different things that we were talking about last month. But let me show you what we do have put together here. So it was 318 offenses for OWIs in 2019. This is the age range. So I don't know if you folks remember when we crunched it last time, the average age was, in the mid to late 30s, early 40s. I was really surprised by the number of 20-somethings that this data really shows was our primary OWI offenders. So this doesn't necessarily what level of OWI, it's just the age of the offenders. So the average age still is in the mid 30s. But that's when we're taking, that 69-year-old and the 17-year-old and we're averaging it out. But when we're looking at the number of offenses, it's that 21 to 29-year-old age group that is having the most OWI offenses in our community.
And I think last time we were just looking at criminal, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
So it would make sense that group is older because it takes a little more time to accumulate more than one.
Sure.
Yep.
Charge. Well,
Absolutely.
hopefully it takes a little bit more than time, not for everyone, but.
The most common age was 23.
Crazy.
For offenses. When we're looking at the gender, 69% were male, 31% were female. That kind of lines up with what we see as far as the jail split between male and female, and even our proxy split, where we're seeing that 30% are females that are coming into our system. Looking at the average age or the, what am I saying here? 1 second. This is just number of first, second, thirds. I don't think I updated this subtitles. So I'll just get rid of that. So this is looking at, okay, what were the offenses? So we had 214 first offenses. Some of them were, I was able to see it was just alcohol. Some were drug, some I don't know. So Katie, I've got some questions on that spreadsheet, so I'll just connect with you offline just to make sure but this was what I could clearly see was a drug case or an alcohol case. So the blue would be the alcohol, the orange would be the drug cases. So 214 first offenses. We had 48 second offenses, 28 third offenses, and they go down from there. But we did have a 10th offense, 2 8th offense, 2 7 offense. So, you know, that would probably be our older population there, our younger population over here. But certainly a sizable amount of OWIs. And Judge Peterson, who leads up our CJCC, is interested in the research to see if an OWI court would be something that would be helpful for our community. And he was really looking at that 3rd or 4th before they get to mandatory prison time. So, but this just shows we've got a lot of folks out there with already having firsts. So, you know, the penalties become steeper and steeper as they have repeated OWIs. Looking at the blood alcohol concentration levels, so the BAC, there was just a few that had that less than 0.08, so those were probably on the no drink, and then we had a few on the high end. The majority of offenders had, you know, between that 0.13 and 0.16. Still sizable levels of blood alcohol in their system. But again, this is where after a certain point, you know, this would be the average person is blacking out and not functioning. These folks are still out there driving and functioning. So it certainly is indicative of dangerous driving.
Makes me want to walk home through the woods.
Right. And these were only the ones that had BAC levels. So the drug ones were not included in this slide. Here I just took the same data and put it in. Did they have less than 0.1, between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3, and 3 and 4? So this just shows that, you know, most of the folks were above 0.10 level. This is where just a scatter plot. So just tried to put a 1 dot represents one OWI and the intoxication levels. So just a different form of the same information there. All right. Sorry. Okay, now looking at the probation, we found that only 4% of those that received an OWI were currently on probation. So much lower rate than I would have guessed, but interesting nonetheless. When we're looking at of those that received an OWI, did they have an operating after suspension or after getting their license revoked? And 28% did have an additional charge. So, you know, 1/3 of the folks are continuing to drive or drink and drive following their initial OWI. Looking at the racial makeup, probably no surprises here. Majority are white folks that were stopped, and then we've got, you know, smattering of all other races in there as well, and then just a few that it was maybe mixed or just unknown or not clear. So pretty consistent with our community, I suppose. Looking at the repeat offenders, this is interesting because, you know, when you boil it down, we've got 38 individuals that were responsible for 87 of the OWIs. 27% of the total OWIs were attributed to 38 individuals. So 30 had 2 offenses, 6 had 3 offenses, 1 had 4 offenses, and 1 had 5 offenses. Looking at where these folks are from, 85% are from Wisconsin, 15% are from out of state. So those are probably our folks that are just visiting or passing through on the interstate. When we're looking at those that are in county or out of county from Wisconsin residents, 55% are in county, and then the rest are out of county. When we're talking about those that are in our county, majority, 69% are from Menominee. So that's that purplish color. Boyceville's 10% or 6%. They just kind of go from there. Colfax would be the 9%. Elk Mound, 8. Knapp, 4%. And we got a couple up in Ridgeland and Wheeler. But by and large, Menominee is, now this is the residence, so where the folks live. I didn't have a chance to analyze where the offense occurred, because I think that's going to be also very telling. You know, are these folks at the taverns in downtown Menominee when this is happening, or is it somewhere else? So I know that was a question that we had after our meeting last month, just really where these offenses are occurring. So we have that data. It's just a matter of crunching it. So that's as far as I got on the crunching, and I know we want to see where these offenses occurred. Is this triggering other questions or curiosity as far as the data on OWIs that I can run down for us?
Sarah, were you going to look into the time of day?
Yep, we've got that as well. Yep.
And then I wonder if you could correlate time of day and age.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a little sad about that, because it might mean that all of the all the older people got theirs in the middle of the afternoon, but nonetheless, be curious to know.
Yep. Katie, I think you had mentioned that you were curious about the agency. We can pull that up too, or just kind of break that down as far as the number, because we did some preliminary discussion last month, but that wasn't the full data set. But again, we can look at the State Patrol, Menominee PD, Duzo, Colfax, and do that breakdown as well, just to see what agency that these OWIs are connected with.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't do, I wish I would have done, was listed who the issuing or the arresting officer was too, just to see. It was just kind of an interesting fact as well. I don't know that we need it, but I know there was some repeat locations, so I'm sure it was just like a common road. That's a spot people take home from the bar or whatever, but there was quite a few locations that were repeated with per agency where people come over at too.
Okay.
Can you break
Not
down,
sure that we need it, but
can you break down, Sarah, per month, the number of
Yes.
OWIs?
Oh yeah.
I was also curious about that too. Yep, that's a good one.
And this is jumping quite a ways ahead, but I think it'll be interesting this time next year to look at OWIs from 2020, especially going through COVID, when a number of places have been closed. There's no festivals, there's no fairs, to see what the comparison is.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where we end up with all of this data, I come back to, when I look at that, all I see are dollar figures. When I think about all the time that's involved, even in a first offense, when you go again, when we costed things out all the way from dispatch through the process, I mean, that there's nothing else we're doing in the county that I would guess has that many numbers attached to it.
Right.
You know, so when you think about a system driver, and like I say, I don't know what exactly we do, but I think that from a CJCC standpoint, if there was will to take on a deeper dive into thinking about what we do from just a pure data system driving standpoint, here's a lot of bang for our buck by figuring out how we don't get so many OWIs.
Right. Yeah. Other thoughts that folks have? All right. Okay, back to you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie, and Sarah for crunching those, but Katie, for you and your staff for putting them together. That stuff's fascinating.
Yeah, it was, honestly, I don't want to look at it for a while because my eyes were for quite a few days from pulling all that information. But thanks for your staff too, Chris, for helping me out with that. So we should be good to go now for a while.
Yeah, so I'll bring back, for our next meeting, I'll bring back hopefully some answers to the questions that we had following this initial data. So more to come.
Can I jump back to that? So was any of that calculated out as far as OWIs with minor passengers?
It is in the spreadsheet,
Okay.
so I can pull that out. You curious? Yep.
I think it'd just be interesting to know.
Yep. Good.
And especially with the time of
and
day.
if somebody thinks of something later, just send me an email and we'll include it on the list.
Yeah, the next item is our next date to be set. So we're looking for August dates, Sarah?
Yes. So like I mentioned, we have our CJCC on the 13th. So I don't know if we want to meet before then or after then, but open. It's hard to believe it's going to be August already.
Do we want to try like Tuesday, August 11th at noon to be a couple days before that meeting? I don't know if that's too soon. Or do we need to meet prior to our CJCC meeting? I guess I don't know.
I guess that we don't necessarily have to meet prior to that CJCC meeting. So it can be after then.
Want to go out to like August 18th at noon?
Works for me. How about others?
That works.
Okay. Great. All right, so that would be Tuesday, the 18th of August at noon, and it'll be via Zoom again. So I'll send out the invitations. Just want to welcome our new member, Hannah, with the Sheriff's Office. So she replaced Leah. So thanks, Hannah, for joining us today and jumping right in. And thanks for everybody else showing up too.
Thanks. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but thanks.
Perfect. Well, if we don't have nothing else, we're adjourned for today.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.